Hey guys, I'm Ryan, and this is my very first video. I love spooky, creepy, mysterious stories, even though I'm also the kind of person who gets scared just by turning off the lights. But for some reason, I still can't stop reading them. So I thought, if I'm gonna suffer, might as well bring you along with me. I scour Reddit and other dark corners of the internet to find the most bone-chilling stories I can. To survive these stories, I'll be editing the videos in a fun and goofy way, to make the chills a little less terrifying.
Daddy, chill.
Alright, enough rambling. Let's get started. What are your real-life ghost stories you like to tell on dark and stormy nights? Something invited itself into my friend's home. I've told this story on another subreddit, but this is the one haunting experience that really freaked me out. When I was younger, I had a next-door neighbor named Lexi, and she was my best friend. Our parents would go on trips on motorcycles with each other, and we would camp out at one of our houses until they came back. It was normal for us. We never had any paranormal events prior to this specific night. We were sitting in bedroom talking and doing what we normally did. We saw a bright light through her window, followed with the sound of motorcycles pulling onto the gravel driveway. We instantly think, okay, our parents forgot something. But before we could even get up to leave the bedroom, we heard a knock and a soft woman's voice say, "Hello?" The front door opened. This was a familiar sound because the door scraped against the hardwood flooring. We panicked, thinking there was an intruder at this point because this woman didn't sound like our family. We have very Texan voices. We scouted the house, scared out of our minds, just to find the front door wide open and nobody in the driveway. Nobody was in the house. We finally felt better. We walked back into her bedroom, but before she went to enter, she collapsed onto the floor and started sobbing. I didn't know what was happening. I was scared, and she told me something as tall as the doorframe was standing in her parents' room. After our parents returned, her family continued to have paranormal activity in their house. They moved out too. Motherfucker. Several years ago on NYE, me and my wife and brother and a bunch of her friends rented a cabin. On NYE, a very tall person walked into the cabin and looked at me, then walked into a bedroom and vanished. I saw them. My brother saw them the next day. None of the girls could see him though. Scared the shit out of us both. That's terrifying. This sort of thing has happened to me too, but I was with my 4-year-old brother. I locked us in the bathroom, got my phone and called my mom and asked if we heard anything and said she would be home soon, and like 10 minutes later she was back and found the door unlocked, even though she locked it when she left. We still live in the same house. Wow, after reading those stories, I'm thinking, yep, definitely not leaving kids alone anytime soon, and double-checking all the doors. I know it sounds like something straight out of a movie, but it's 100% what happened to me about 24 years ago. When I was still relatively newly married, my then husband and I moved into a townhouse-style apartment. The 2 floors of our apartment were on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the building, and the management office and mailbox area was almost directly below us on the ground level. Important for later, the woman who managed the building was older, didn't care for the property well, and usually spent most days chain-smoking Camel non-filters in her office, and being a hateful old racist. Imagine renting a place from Juno, the social worker from Beetlejuice, but less helpful. She really resented what we had, the townhouse, claiming we lied about my being pregnant when we moved it because she didn't want to rent that unit to people with kids. She also made a few disparaging remarks about my husband due to his race. She was a real peach, truly. So after kiddo was born, I was a som, just busy keeping the house clean and the baby occupied without a car or local mom friends. After lunch, the kiddo needed a bath. Anyone who's fed a 9-month-old baby food knows the mess that can happen. So I went upstairs and ran the tub. Soon, I had the baby sitting happily splashing in one of those suction cup bath seats. Important to note, it's the middle of winter and we had no heat. An issue I'd been fighting Juno the landlord about for a while, among other maintenance issues, like my arcing ceiling fan, or the garbage disposal that was held on with duct tape and leaked. We basically had to keep a space heater or 2 in every room to keep the chill off. I had taken one of the space heaters in the bathroom to keep the bathroom warm enough for bath time, and had it sitting out of reach and splashing distance, on top of the bathroom counter. I was standing in the bathtub, getting ready to lift the baby out, when all of a sudden, the space heater started to rock back and forth, when it had not been rocking before. I had this horrible feeling of dread as I looked at the heater, and I just reacted because I knew I couldn't get both of us out of the tub in time. I reached down to grab the baby seat, ending up pulling it up off the tub and dropping the baby over the side of the tub to the bathroom floor just as the heater got to the end of the cord. It thumped into the shower door, bounced off the edge of the tub, and landed on its side on the floor a couple inches away, where it shut off. Had auto shut off in case it got tipped over. When I looked over to the corner of the bathroom, that part of the room seemed to just get darker, like it was filling up with shadows. There was no smoke, no change in lighting, no windows, so no sun going behind a cloud, etc. It was just darker. I also started to smell cigarette smoke. Camel non-filters, which I knew the smell of well from being in Juno's office all the time to get things fixed. The smell was so thick it made me cough and my chest ached, but I couldn't see any smoke haze. And I felt this overwhelming sensation of hatred and malice, like someone was standing there giving me a death glare. I grabbed the baby and a towel and ran downstairs. I was so freaked out, I couldn't bring myself to go back up there. So I used some diapers from the diaper bag and kept the baby wrapped in the towel and cuddled up to stay warm. I stayed down there the entire rest of the day until my husband got home. Every so often, I'd look up the stairs at the bathroom, but I didn't want to take the baby up there, and I was afraid to leave him alone downstairs. When he asked me why the baby wasn't dressed, I told him about the heater and the smoke in the bathroom, and he went up to check, figuring it was yet another maintenance issue. There was no electrical issues, no damage to the outlet, no smoke, no cigarette smell. He put the heater back on the counter and turned it on, watched it for a few minutes and it didn't rock, so it didn't rock itself off the counter earlier. He laughed it off, but later that day, we heard Juno's adult son downstairs near the mailboxes yelling his head off at people. And that's when we found out she'd had a massive heart attack in her office earlier that day and he'd found her dead in her chair, with a Camel non-filtered still in her hand. I guess when you're looking for a place to live, having nice neighbors is super important. I mean, this is low-key giving me chills. I manage a venue that used to be a Roman Catholic church, and was then abandoned and used as a flophouse for many years. I am frequently in the building alone late at night by myself, closing up after shows and club nights. Several strange things have happened to me there. 1. I was really busy setting up for an event and I was walking along the mezzanine area toward a room that everyone had told me was haunted, and while I love ghost stories, I don't really believe in the supernatural on a fundamental level. The last thing on my mind at this time was spooky stuff. I was en route from one area to another, on a mission to do some logistical task or another. I paused at the railing, and suddenly I felt the sensation of being grabbed hard around the ankle, as though from below, which made no sense as it was a 25-foot drop down to the main floor. I leapt backwards and started shaking my leg, and looked everywhere, but saw nothing. 2. I was taking a meeting in broad daylight with a collaborator. We were sitting on a plush couch in the middle of the space, enjoying our conversation about a potential series of events we could do. Because it was a business meeting, I left one cushion of space between him and myself on the couch. Suddenly, mid-sentence, I felt the distinct sensation of someone walking up to us, and then sitting directly between us. We both paused and just stared at the cushion, which was moving. There was an impression as though someone had sat down, and there was a palpable energy and tension in the air. It felt for all the world as though an invisible person was sitting right there. We sat frozen in silence for about 30 seconds, which is actually a long time, in the middle of a business meeting, staring at the cushion, until I finally waved my arms through the space in exasperation and laughed. We were both confused and shaken and ended the meeting quickly. 3. I had to supervise a group who was rehearsing in the space. I was hungover and got in the morning, led in the group, and went upstairs into a secluded area to take a nap on the couch and wait out my shift. Mid-nap, I woke up suddenly and heard someone slowly descending the stairs from the bell tower. I froze and kept my eyes closed, thinking it was someone from the rehearsing group and I just wanted them to go away. The footsteps drew closer, and I heard what sounded like a man muttering to himself under his breath, as he leaned over me and grasped my hip hard. He squeezed it until it hurt. I let out a yell and opened my eyes, but there was nobody there. Probs just sleep paralysis, but very odd. I've never had a sleep paralysis incident before. 4. Multiple instances of seeing figures in the mirror, hearing doors slam, etc. People calling my name from distant corners, when I'm there by myself. The custodian once told me she refuses to clean at night anymore since she heard someone quietly praying in the confessional at 3 in the morning. Everyone likes to claim it's the ghosts of all these Irish Catholic priests and their parishioners, but in my opinion, the many years the church sat empty and desolate as a last resort shelter for drug addicts and prostitutes is the more likely window of time where people would have died desperate, lost, and in pain. Well, yeah, after reading this one, I'm definitely steering clear of any abandoned places, especially old churches. Like, no, not happening. I mean, it's not just the creepy ghost stuff, right? Sometimes there are actual people, like gangs or sketchy stuff going on inside. And listen, I am not about to risk my life just because I got curious. Sure, being curious is human, but I'd rather stay alive than go exploring where I clearly shouldn't be. Not very scary, but a little tragic, so here it is. Before I was born, my entire family and extended family, uncles, aunts, cousins, etc. all went to the beach one day for a picnic in Pakistan. Now, I don't know the exact details, however. Back in the day, the smugglers used to bring in electronics from various countries to resell them via boats, and they would park the boats at the beach. Now, from what I have always been told, and I don't know how, if someone does please shed light as I am always curious, they used to dig holes or something similar during low tides, so when it was full, it would create sort of a vortex or some inward pressure that'd help keep the boat steady on that spot as they unloaded. However, once completed, they'd leave and leaving that hole in the ground. So back to the picnic, as everyone arrives, 20+ people, the kids get out of the cars and run straight to the ocean. And as they enter, they start getting sucked into that hole one after another, screams ensues and everyone is trying to save each other, and one after another they keep going in. Eventually, 14 members of my family drowned and died there in a matter of minutes. It was an absolute catastrophe and extremely tragic. However, the haunting paranormal part of it comes next. Everyone used to live in a massive house all together. Think 4 stories, huge old-styled house. So now imagine all of a sudden 14 people gone, dead. It became extremely depressing and empty, that place. One of the floors was completely closed off as the entire family living there had died. After a few years, it became extremely common and frequent to hear kids playing on that floor, or you'd hear every other night footsteps of someone walking in, putting on slippers and going up the stairs. You could stand there and hear it clear as daylight. I recall a very clear incident. I was sitting on the ground floor long lobby, with doors on each side, with a mirror at the end and a swing in the middle next to the kitchen door. My mom was in the kitchen, and I was sitting in the swing facing the mirror, as I see 2 kids peek out of one of the rooms and then run to the adjacent room. I asked my mom if we have guests over, and she said no, no one is over. I explained why I asked. She pulled me into the kitchen and explained that day that it's common to see the kids, however not to engage them or go towards them, and to mind my own business. It became extremely common for us to spot these things as we lived there, but no harm was done. Once my tutor came home, sitting in my room, and I'd always close the door to my room so there are no distractions. Once he came about and he was sitting facing the door which I had left open as I was alone at home. He mentioned to me midway if I could close the door, as my family was walking around and it was a bit distracting. I told him no one is home, which he didn't believe, until I took him out and showed him around the whole floor. He absolutely freaked out and immediately left and stopped tutoring me unless I went to his place. I moved to Saudi Arabia after that and saw a lot of things growing up, but thankfully I am not scared of such things or experiences, so I don't get freaked out, but I'd imagine most people would get really freaked out. When you live in the desert, you see things that you can't explain. It's creepy sometimes. In life, there are all kinds of people, some like this, some like that, so of course ghosts are gonna come in all shapes and vibes too. Just mind your business, leave them be, and don't bother or interact with them, even if you do see one. Hope the person who shared the story is still doing well. Anyway, that's the end of the video. If you've ever had a spooky experience like this, or just want to share something wild, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And hey, if you liked the video, give it a like. It really helps me going. Alright, stay safe out there, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.